He says they are poisoning the blood of America. So what he's saying is the ideal version of America is a white America. And anytime brown people infiltrate America, they're messing up the blood of America. They're messing up the gene pool of America. And that takes us back to Hitler. That takes us back to eugenics. That takes us back to folks who believe there's a genetic hierarchy that's racially determined.
Race is superior to the other.
Yes, and I just can't imagine. It couldn't be me, a black man voting for somebody who believes so deeply that black men are inferior to him.
All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Club Shay Shay. I am your host, Shannon Sharpe. I'm also the proprietor of Club Shay Shay. The guy that's stopping by for conversation and a drink today, he really needs no introduction, but here we go. He's one of America's most versatile artists. He's one of the most respected and acclaimed singers and songwriters in the music industry. He's one of the most awarded musicians of our generation. He's the first African-American and one of the youngest men ever to join the exclusive EGOT Club, which means he's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. He's won 2 Emmy Awards, 12 Grammys, an Oscar, and a Tony Award. He's also won the Golden Globe and an NAACP Image Award. He also has a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a writer of some of the world's most romantic ballads. Whoo-wee! He's a gold, multi-platinum, diamond-selling artist. Diamonds means he's sold at least 10 million units. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, a talented, celebrated, accomplished pianist, producer, composer, vocalist, actor, host, poet, entertainer, music and choir director, an international performer, an A-list celebrity, a soulful superstar, a dedicated and global humanitarian, a philanthropist, a gift to the world, a fan favorite, an icon, a savvy businessman. He was a child prodigy. He's a proud dad. He's a loving husband. Let's give it up for the one, the only, John Legend.
Shannon, wow, that introduction, man. Man, I didn't know I was getting an introduction like that.
Bro, we don't give people what they deserve. We give people what they earn.
All right.
And everything that I read off this card, you've earned that.
Thank you, sir.
I know you're very busy, John. We've been trying to set this thing up for a better part of the year.
I'm happy to be here, man. I'm a fan.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Bro, I want to toast. You say you haven't had my cognac. This is Shea by Laportier.
Here we go.
I wanted to toast you for everything that you've done, the great man, the great father, the great dad that you are, and everything you've done to help our community.
Cheers, brother. Appreciate you, sir. Oh, yeah. That's some good cognac.
I thought you was going to...
I took a shot, man. Are we sipping?
I thought, but clearly we not sipping now.
Well, let's put a little bit more. So during the interview, if I need to sip, I have a little sip. Man. All right.
I mean, it's a little early in the morning too, John.
It's early.
But
I was prepared, though. I knew I was
prepared. You was
I had a little food beforehand.
Okay, so we good.
Make sure the stomach's lined and everything.
John, I want to congratulate you on your 11th wedding anniversary, and I understand how important family is to you.
Yeah.
Your kids, your wife. And so I went shopping yesterday on Amazon. Scrolling through, I was like, what can you get the person to have everything?
Uh-huh.
So I did come up with a gift.
All right.
I think you'll be very,
You got the Amazon box?
Yeah. So I wanted to give you this. I went shopping on Amazon.
This is good. We love this. This is great because, it's got pictures of my family and it's digital. And I'm the yearbook maker in our family.
Oh, really?
So every year for Mother's Day, I make a yearbook for Chrissy. So I'm always collecting the photos throughout the year in a folder on my phone. And then I edit it and send it to my guy. He makes a yearbook every year for the family. And so this is exactly
So you know what? So I did pretty good, huh?
Yes, sir. This is right in my alley.
Since you are the gift giver, I read that in 2011, you got Chrissy a cookbook and a crockpot. After being with someone for almost 2 decades, does it get easier or harder to get gifts?
Well, I've set the bar pretty high for myself. That wasn't the highest bar back then, but I've gotten her some nice jewelry. But I try to really know what she loves.
Right.
And I think the more you know somebody, it's actually easier in that sense to get them a gift. But if you continually raise the bar, then you got a high bar to jump over.
Yeah. But let me ask you this: like, okay, obviously, like anniversaries and things like that, that's very important. So you're not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
But something like for a birthday, are you trying to be serious, or are you trying to be funny, knowing that she has an incredible sense of humor?
She does have a sense of humor, but I like to get her something nice, something special for her birthday, for our anniversary, and then we also like to just have fun. So I talk to her about what kind of party she wants to have, and we try to just, do stuff that appeals to her. Sometimes she just wants to sit in her robe and chill.
Wow.
One time we just had a pajama party at the house. And so I try to think about what she would actually love. And she don't like a big hoopla a lot of times.
Really?
Yeah.
So she don't like a whole lot of people around. She likes it to be a more intimate setting.
She's just a more chill person. And if she could get everybody to come over the house and watch Bravo with her and sit in her pajamas, she'd be happy.
Right. Now, we all know how the meeting took place. You met on one of your music videos.
Yes, Stereo.
Did you request her, or was the talent agency sent her?
Well, it's funny because the music video wasn't even an official music video.
Okay.
It was something my friend Nabil, he's a photographer and now he's a director, but at the time he was just a photographer, but he wanted to show people he could make videos.
Okay.
And he was like, John, I have this idea to shoot a video for you for this song I really like. And it wasn't a single, so we weren't putting a budget toward that video. And he just decided he wanted to shoot this video. And then he showed me pictures of this model he had just worked with.
Okay.
And he was like, do you think you want to cast her in the video?
Okay.
And I was like, yes. I saw the picture and I was like, yes, the audition, yeah, she went.
Okay.
And then, so she got cast in the video and then we just hit it off.
Right.
As soon as we started working together, we had chemistry and we started hanging out literally after the video shoot. And that was 2006. So it's been 18 years since we met.
Right.
Yeah.
So you look at, he showed you the book and says, okay, I just worked with this one. I mean, is there someone that you think you could have chemistry with, you work with and work great on set?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. But when did you know?
I think I started to know a year, a little less than a year in, because our relationship started with us not being together in the same place a lot. I was living in New York. She was living in Los Angeles. And then I had to travel all the time. This is the beginning of my career. This is my second album.
Yes.
And I'm hustling. I'm traveling the world. I'm doing everything I need to do to get my career off the ground. And she's modeling. She's modeling in LA and in Miami. And so we're not in the same place a lot. But the more we were together, I'm just we have chemistry. She's funny. She's beautiful. She's sexy. We have great interactions with each other. She makes me laugh. She makes me have more fun than I would have without her. And I just started to fall in love with her. And that was about a year, almost a year in where I'm like, okay, this is something special. And so, we started to act accordingly. And then I didn't propose till 2011, but I knew I was in love before then.
How different is she from the women that you've dated in your past?
She's funnier than anyone I've dated before.
Right.
I always dated beautiful women, but...
Yeah, musicians and singers always get the beauty.
But she was a perfect combination of beautiful, cool, funny. She has great values as a person, and I felt like we aligned. We're different in a lot of ways, but our sense of humor aligns, and there's certain things taste-wise where we align and we're on the same page. And then she's different enough to make me have more fun than I would have without her. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm kind of chill.
You can chill, okay. Yeah.
I'm kind of chill, and she's obviously more dynamic, and I think having that kind of yin and yang in a relationship is actually good.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of experts says sleeping with someone on the first date is not really conducive for a long-term relationship.
People say that, but
here we are. 18 years later, here we are.
18 years later, here we are.
Why do you think you guys have success? Now, I've had a conversation with some women, and they say, Shannon, the type of men that are in the bracket that we're looking at, there's a scarcity. Sure. And they're not going to wait. John, when you and I was growing up, the thought of somebody sleeping on the first night was slim to none. You had to wait a month, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah. And they say men aren't waiting because there's so many out there that they can pick from. Mm-hmm. So a woman says, well, I'm going to make you wait 3 months. You might wait. He's not waiting.
That is true. That is often the case. So exactly, not be ready to do that, but he might be, if he's got options, he might be doing that while you're waiting.
Exactly. You're waiting, but he's not waiting.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Shannon Sharpe, and I'm a Rose sponsor. Do you want hotter, more spontaneous sex? Rose Sparks can help. Sparks offer dual-action prescription treatment that's giving men stronger and harder erections. Rose Sparks works faster than other treatments because they're dissolved under the tongue and go directly to the bloodstream. Why does that matter? Because now when the mood is right, he'll be ready. No more waiting for that pill to kick in. Plus, Rose Sparks stays active in your system for up to 36 hours. But when you get around, hey, woo, you get hard without waiting. With Rose Sparks, guys can get more confidence in bed, more satisfaction for their partners, and more control when it's sexy time. Rose connects guys with a medical provider 100% online. There's no awkward conversation with an in-person doctor. If approved, treatment ships directly to the door. To find out if a prescription for Rose Sparks are right for you, connect with a provider at ro.co/Shay Shay. URL, that's ro.co/Shay Shay. So people call you for relationship goals, John. How does that make you feel? Because like you said, you waited 5 years, but now you seem to be the standard of this young, healthy relationship. You're so happy. You got this loving family, and you do post a lot of your ups. You had some tragedies, some trials and tribulations in your life, but you'll share that.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel that you being so young? It's not like y'all been married 50 years, John.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes you hear folks talk like, oh man, relationships are such hard work. And Chrissy and I will watch people say that. And if that's your story, if that's your experience, then that's what it is. But for us, it's really not hard work for us to be together. And there's challenges that we've had, like tragedies that we've had to deal with together, miscarriage and other tragedies we've had to deal with together. But us, me and her, like, it's never actually been that hard for us to be in a relationship. And I think the reason why is it starts with a mutual respect and being with somebody you actually like and like to be around and respect and enjoy their company, enjoy their sense of humor. Like I said before, like, we're really compatible. Even though we're different, we're really compatible, and we have a good time together. And I think there are things you need to do to make sure you maintain that, which is being honest and trustworthy, being a person of good character, a good parent, a good co-parent, taking responsibility together. So there's certain things you have to do that are work. But I feel like if you are a person of character and you're with somebody that you love and respect, it shouldn't be such hard work to stay together.
You mentioned you guys have been together for 18 years. You have 11, you just had celebrated your 11th wedding anniversary. So that means there was some time in between that you guys weren't husband and wife.
Sure.
What took you so long? Because a lot of times women say, hey, I'm going to give him a year, I'm going to give him 2 years. If he ain't asked me the questions, I'm moving on.
Well, you got to think, we were younger then. So, I'm 45 now, but 18 years ago, I was still in my late 20s. Yeah. She was in her early 20s. When I met her, she was 20 years old. And so, like, she wasn't like, oh, I need to get married right away. So we're still young, and we didn't feel like there was a rush to get married.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she was patient, you were patient, you're like...
Yeah, but we were enjoying life. It wasn't like she was waiting for a ring. It was like we were actually enjoying being together. And when I proposed, she was still a little surprised. When I proposed, we were on vacation in the Maldives. We got married at Lake Como, and we were on vacation in the Maldives when I proposed. And it was around Christmas time. And
she had no idea?
She had no idea. And I was trying to keep it a secret. And I had gotten a ring and everything. And I'd been working on it for a few months. And I was like, I'm going to wait till Christmas time when we go on this trip. And I had the ring in my backpack, and it was a very nondescript package, but it was in a box, just a regular brown box, smaller version of this Amazon box. And so I'm going through the airport, and to go to the Maldives at the time, you had to fly through Colombo, Sri Lanka, which is right by the Maldives, near India. So we're going through the airport in Colombo, and the TSA equivalent there wants to look through my bag.
Y'all about to ruin it, bro.
Yes. So I'm like, the box is in there. And I was like, they're gonna make me propose here in this airport. They're gonna open this box here in the airport. And I was just looking at them like, don't open it, don't open it, don't open it. And they didn't open it.
Wow.
And we get to the resort, we're there for a while. And on our last night there, right before Christmas, I had them set it up so they bring it out. With dessert, bring the ring out with dessert. They covered it up with some, I didn't ask them to do this, but they did it anyway. They covered it up with like some lettuce, like it was some leaves. I don't even know what plant it was, but it was leaves on top of the box.
Right.
And then the box is uncovered and she's like, she was in shock.
Right.
She didn't expect it, yeah.
Were you nervous? How long had you been thinking like, okay, this is the one.
Yeah.
This is the woman that I want to be the mother of my kids.
Yeah.
This is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Yeah.
How long did that process, how long were you thinking about popping this question and were you nervous?
I felt like probably a few years in that I was probably going to marry her, but I didn't feel any sense of like urgency, like I had to propose like right away. But we were together. We were living together. We were together, and I assumed we were going to be together forever. But then eventually I was like, it's time. Like I need to propose. And so I think there was a mentally preparing for that probably for like 9 months, and then shopping for the ring probably for a few months, getting it all together, and then Christmas time, I was like, it's time.
When you were discussing like Chrissy, obviously she knew who you were.
Yeah.
And you're like, you want kids? Okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Do you want to get married? Do you want one kid? Do you want any kids? Do you want 5 kids? You want a basketball team? What were those conversations like, John?
She's always wanted 4 kids.
4, okay.
Yeah, and I grew up in a family of 4 kids.
Yes.
I'm the second of 4 kids. I had 2 brothers and 1 sister. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. And so 4 sounded good to me. And so we were on the same page with 4 kids. And, she loves to cook. She loves to have people over the house. And her dream has always been, I want to have grandkids. I want to have a family where every Sunday they come over to the house. We cook for them. We spend time together. Jewish families have Shabbat on Friday nights. Yeah. And then a lot of Christian families on Sunday, like always Sunday dinner, get together after church. And that's what we did in my family. And Chrissy just has always dreamt of Sunday dinner with the family. And she wants that kind of family where everybody feels like the door is open and the kids can always come back home and hang out with us and bring the grandkids when that's time. And she's always wanted that kind of family. And she didn't grow up in that kind of family. She grew up in a small family, and she always wanted that. And I was used to that. That was the way I grew up. I grew up with a big family. My mother's one of 6. My father's one of 5. And we all lived near each other in Springfield, Ohio, or in the surrounding area. And so I was used to that kind of energy, our Christmases, our Thanksgivings, our Sunday dinners, like we just had family all the time. And so I'm used to that. And then Chrissy wanted that. And I'm like, let's go. Let's do it.
Springfield, Ohio.
Yes.
Are the Haitians still eating the cats?
Oh my Lord. Y'all, if y'all saw my Instagram video, and if you watched the debate, you saw President Trump saying some slander about the people from Haiti that live in my hometown. Right. And what's so awful about what he said was, one, it's not true. So to be clear, there's been no...
That is factually incorrect.
...complaints from the local residents that Haitians are doing anything like what they've been accused of. 2, they're legal immigrants to the country. They came here on protected status. And then 3, it's a success story. The reason why they're in Springfield is because there are more jobs available than there used to be. Springfield was shrinking for years. When I grew up there, there were 75,000 people. At its peak, it was around 80,000 people. And lately, before this boom in the economy and the opportunity there, it went down to 58,000 people. Wow. So the city was withering, and there was a lack of opportunity, and people were leaving. And the reason why these Haitians were attracted to the city was because there were jobs there that needed to be filled. And that's a good thing. It's a great thing that these manufacturing jobs and opportunities are there for folks that weren't there before. And yes, there's some difficulty whenever you have folks that come from a different country, speak a different language, have a different culture, and they move to your city. And that's fine. But the folks in Springfield are dealing with it. We have a Republican mayor in Springfield. He's dealing with it. We've got a Republican governor in Ohio. He's dealing with it. Everybody's cool. And they're like, we don't need y'all coming in lying, stirring up stuff. They had bomb threats at the school. They had all kinds of nastiness, KKK marching in the street. All this is caused by Trump and Vance lying, stirring up division, and creating a problem that wasn't the kind of problem that they created.
Right. As a former NFL player, I know a thing or two about high performance, and that's why I drive the BMW 7 Series. This car has everything I need. It's big enough, comfortable enough, and luxurious enough to meet even my high expectations. When I'm behind the wheel of the BMW, I'm not just driving a car, I'm driving legacy. What I love most is the precision engineering, cutting-edge technology, and unmatched style. Whether it's spacious interior, the powerful engine, or the smooth ride, BMW makes sure every detail is on point. I trust BMW to deliver the ultimate driving experience, and I know you will too. So why wait? Head over to BMWUSA.com. Check out models like the sporty X3, the all-electric i4. Build your dream car today and join me in experiencing luxury and performance that only the ultimate driving machine can offer. John, I went to your concert about a year ago, and a lot of what we're going to talk about today, because I think you do a very good job. A lot of times before you play a song, you'll tell the origins of that. You will tell what I was thinking, where I was, and the place and how it came to be. Sometimes you do it afterwards. And what I wanted to ask you, because you have a very fondness of your father. And I want to know how much of the father you are is a direct tie to the father that he is.
Oh, it's directly related to him. One, I think I inherited a lot of his personality, so I'm a lot like him. And I think I'd be like him anyway, because we're just built the same way. So that's one thing. But I was able to, one, my father stressed the importance of character with us. And he was intentional about teaching us what it meant to be a good human being, person of character, person of responsibility, person of integrity and honesty, someone that is trustworthy and dependable and accountable, all these things. He taught us what it meant to be a good man. And so he taught us that. And my mother, was a great mother as well, but she, after her mother died, she was dealing with mental health issues and then addiction issues. And so she was out of our lives for a while. So he had to be a single father for a while. And the way he stepped up to that occasion, knowing that he had to do it by himself with help from our extended family, but he had to do it by himself. Seeing him do that and step up to the plate for us and always be there for us and show us what it meant to be a good man, I'll always honor him for that and always look up to him for that. And I always say he's my role model when it comes to being a good father.
I remember you telling the story.
In
case you guys don't know, this man is a prodigy. He was homeschooled early on. He got bumped up 2 grades. I think he graduated at the age of 15, 16.
16 from high school,
Enrolled in college at the age of 16. And you had the ideal life. 2-parent household, kids, church going. Your mom was the choir director, if I'm not mistaken.
Choir director, yes.
Your grandmother played the organ. Your father was a hardworking man, but he was in the church also. Guys grew up in the church. And everything was perfect. Your maternal grandmother passed, which is your mom's mom. And it shook the foundation of the Legend family.
And my mother and her mother were very close. So they, like you said, one's the choir director, one's the organist. That means every choir rehearsal, they're together, leading the choir. They spent a lot of time together. They were very close. And it was shocking when my grandmother died. She was only 58 years old, and she had heart failure. And it really threw my mother. It threw her. And we lost her for a while. We lost her for 10 solid years. She was out of our lives, and she went to a dark place. And it was because she couldn't handle it when her mother passed away. And it really did shake our whole family. This happened when I was around 10 or 11 years old. And so I started going to public school for the first time after my mother wasn't able to homeschool us anymore, and she was out of our lives for a while.
How difficult was that for you, John? Because it's one thing, okay, your mom, let's just say you're in Ohio, Springfield, Ohio, and your mom's in Detroit. She's in Chicago. She's in New York. She's 1,000 miles away.
Right.
But if I'm not mistaken, your mom was in the same city.
She was in the same city, but I was avoiding, like...
You avoided or she avoided?
I didn't want to see her.
Oh.
Because it was hard.
Yes.
It's hard to see your mother, like, struggling with addiction, and like, she was so beautiful and so vibrant and so talented. She was singing at events all the time and just gorgeous. And then to see that light go from her and to see her addicted to drugs, it was very hard for me to see her. And so I avoided seeing her and focused on everything else but her.
Right.
Because it was too hard for me to see her.
How did you stay focused, knowing that your mom is going through something and there's something that you can't do anything about it?
Yeah.
She's going to have to try to figure this out on her own, but you realize there's a bigger calling for John Legend.
Yeah.
At the time, John Steve was there, but it became...
Well, they gave us a great foundation. Okay. So my mother and father, them homeschooling us and giving us the foundation that they gave us, it actually made it so that we were able to cope better once she was gone. That doesn't mean
it was easy.
It was easy, but at least, you know, they had put so much time and preparation and intention into raising us to be good young people that there was still that after effects of that lingering after she was gone. And then my dad did great work. And then I think our extended family did great work too. I had uncles and aunts that were near us that, you know, were part of our support system. You know, they say it takes a village. We had a village around us. And then I had a counselor at my high school that was a black man, and I went to a majority white school, and majority of the adults at the school were white as well. But there was one black man that was a counselor, and he took a special interest in me and my family, and he just mentored me. Neither of my parents graduated from college, so it was good to have somebody who was a college graduate that was mentoring me, who was a black man that looked like me and cared about my future and didn't want me to slip through the cracks. And then I think because of what was going on with my parents and with my mother, it just kind of made me want to focus on something else, and music and school were the things I focused on.
Right. How difficult was it being homeschooled? I mean, did you have a whole lot of friends? I mean, you say your brothers and sisters were homeschooled, but after school was over, I mean, I don't know how homeschooling worked.
Yeah.
You get 5 hours of homeschooling and you go out to play with friends that's close by? Or
So we grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of kids, and I grew up in a neighborhood with a lot of my cousins not too far from me. And so we would go in the backyard or around the corner and play football with them and basketball. And so we had a really nice family network around us, but I was a little shy. Like, socially, you're not as used to dealing with a lot of different new people if you don't go to school.
Right.
And so when I finally went to public school, I was shy, man. And the only reason that I integrated into like the social life of the school was music.
Right.
Because if there was a talent show, if there was a choir, if there was any opportunity for me to sing, I knew I could sing.
Right.
And so that was the one way that I found it to like introduce myself to people. Oh, that's the one who can sing. Right. That's the young guy who's 2 grades ahead, but he can sing. You know what I'm saying? And so I would get to school, and that was my way of introducing myself to people. Even when I went to college, I was still 2 years younger than everybody. And I was also from kind of a background that wasn't typical of a kid at the University of Pennsylvania.
Correct.
So a lot of those kids were East Coast kids. They went to fancy private schools. A lot of them come from money. And I'm coming there from a blue-collar family, from a small city in Ohio. And I had every reason to feel like I'm not one of them.
I don't belong.
And music was my only way of like making myself feel a part of things and included in things.
You said that you're 2 years younger. So you go to high school, what? You were 12 years old as a freshman in high school.
My nickname was Doogie Howser.
You go to college, you're 16 years of age.
Yeah.
So how difficult was it? Because, first of all, the upperclassmen don't want to deal with freshmen that are 14,
exactly,
let alone dealing with one that's 12
exactly.
years old.
And when I went to college, I lied about my age. I didn't even lie that hard. Like, I was 16 and I said I was 17. So I didn't want to feel like I was too much of a freak being there. Like, so I just inched it up 1 year just so it didn't seem odd that I was there. I was just a little young.
But John, when people look at you, I mean, You're an adult now. I can imagine someone your size back then. You look young.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you.
And I'm 5'10" now. Like when I was in high school, I was 4'11" when I started high school.
What? A 4'11", 12-year-old.
I was tiny, man. And you know, I was just behind in every, like, obviously, I'm like 12 years old, everybody else is 14. And so it wasn't easy. Right. No.
Did you play sports in high school, or was school music, was that?
I'm a terrible athlete, Shannon. Now, I love sports.
Right.
Like, I watch sports. I watch you all the time. And I played all the time with my cousins and with my brothers. But when it came to organized sports, the last time I played organized sports was basketball in elementary school. And since then, I played for fun all the time. But I was never good enough. And also, when you're 2 years younger, like you're physically just behind everybody. Right. And so I didn't have a chance.
And they don't take that into account.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care. You're a freshman. They're freshmen. Like, you're being measured on the same, you know.
You're absolutely right. And you were telling the story that you and your dad are a lot alike, and he gave you the foundation to become the man that you became, and become the father that you become. Yeah. So obviously, he had to deal with something. His wife, of a long period of time, went through a bout of depression. Yeah. And he kind of lost her for a while. They ended up remarrying, and we'll get to that. Yeah. So when your situation, Chrissy's struggling to have kids. Yeah. Was that the time that you leaned back and you thought about, like, how would my dad handle this situation?
Yeah, you know, I think part of my journey has been forgiving my mother and learning that when trauma happens to people, when events happen in their lives, sometimes it's hard for them to recover, and they go through mental health struggles. And people that are in their family, the people that they love, they need to have some grace with them and help them through that. And so whenever Chrissy struggled with anything, I think I did learn from what happened with my mother. And she's also learned from what happened with her mother too. Because when her mother's mother died, she actually went through a similar thing where she disappeared from the family. She went back to Thailand, spent some time with her family there. And Chrissy lost her mom for a while after her mother's mother died. And so we both been through a similar sense of loss of not having our mothers in our lives for a while and seeing what their response was to their mothers dying. And so I think we've both learned from that, and we know we need to, like, double up when it comes to the energy and support that we give each other when we're going through tough times.
You realize, I mean, you guys started dating. She wants 4 kids, you want 4 kids, but it wasn't that easy. If I'm not mistaken, I think 3 of the 4 kids, IVF was used, and the 4th was a surrogate.
Well, actually, 4 of 5 were IVF. And the only kid we conceived naturally was the one we lost, baby Jack. So all the rest of our kids are conceived through IVF. Yeah.
So that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough for a mom to have to go through that. Yeah. Obviously, it's tough on you. So, John, when you have to console your wife because you know how bad she wanted this child. Yeah. What are you saying? How do you, like Chris says, I'm sorry. There's not enough I'm sorry.
There's not enough. And the thing you got to realize is you're not going to solve the problem in that moment. And, you know, I'm a person that likes to solve the problem. Yes. Like, I'm very like, I want to solve it. I want to fix it. And sometimes you got to realize you can't fix it.
Right.
You're just gonna have to live in it for a while, and you're gonna get through it. But you can't fix it all of a sudden. There's no magical words you can say to fix it. But you need to be there. You need to be supportive, right? And you need to work together to get through it.
Right. Also, that she had a life-saving abortion.
Yeah.
Is that why you're so adamant?
Oh yeah.
About the situation with that the woman have the right? It's her body, her choice, and Roe v. Wade, what made you so upset that it got overturned after 50 plus years?
Absolutely. Now, I was always pro-choice. Actually, not always. I grew up in the church, and we were taught that, you know, we were supposed to be pro-life when I was growing up in the church. Right. But as soon as I became an adult, I just realized that we need that choice. We don't need the government telling us what to do. And women don't need the government telling them what to do with their bodies. And life is complicated. And there are all kinds of reasons why people might want or need an abortion, and the government has no place in that decision. But then when we went through all these fertility struggles and then had a miscarriage, it made it even more clear to me how personal everything that happens in that room with your OBGYN, everything that happens in that room is private. And it's so intensely personal and intensely physical. A woman feels every aspect of this thing.
Of birth.
Forcing them to carry something for 9 months that they don't want. A government doing that? That's crazy to me. And then what people don't realize is when you say, oh, I'm fine with it as long as it's, up to 15 weeks. Like, people that have an abortion after 15 weeks, almost always, they wanted to keep the baby. But there's some kind of complication that came up that they have to have an abortion. So my wife, she was well past 15 weeks when she had to have an abortion. She was miscarrying and bleeding out, and all these things were happening to her.
Her life was in danger.
Her life was in danger. And for the government to say, oh, we need to evaluate this to make sure you're sufficiently dying before you can have an abortion. That's what they're saying in Texas and in Georgia and in all these states where they have Trump abortion bans. They're saying the government needs to evaluate whether you are sufficiently dying before you can have an abortion. Not your doctor, not you and your family, the government. No, stay out of it. Let these women, let them and their families and their doctors make these decisions. We don't need the government to be involved in it. And if the government's involved, that means the police and the district attorney are involved in medical decisions. That's crazy. It's crazy.
I agree.
And overturning Roe versus Wade, Trump wants to claim credit for it, but at the same time be like, I just put it with the states. Oh no, you put it with the states of Texas, states of Georgia, of Alabama, of,
Tennessee,
you put it with these states. And by the way, that's where most black women live, in the South.
Southern states.
In the South. So that means the majority of black women are in regimes that would rather possibly let them die before giving them the life-saving treatment that they need.
You also, one of your sons has type 1 diabetes, correct?
Yes, mine.
He got diagnosed.
Yeah.
How's that going?
He's going good. Obviously we have the resources and the support we need to take care of him. And, one of the things that I think about when I think about politics is the role that parents play in their lives, what it means to have a health concern with your kid. And we're very fortunate. We have the resources to take care of it.
Correct.
But insulin used to be expensive. And it's still expensive if you're not a senior. And one of the reasons I vote for Kamala Harris is because she's already limited the cost of insulin for seniors, and they're working to limit it for everyone below senior citizen status. So these kinds of things directly impact people's lives all around the country. And like I said, we can afford it, but most people can't. Correct. And so when people have these kind of medical issues they need to deal with, this is important. And by the way, Obamacare made it so that if you have a pre-existing condition,
they couldn't deny it.
Which type 1 diabetes would be a pre-existing condition. So if my son grew up and tried to get insurance under the old regime, he wouldn't have been able to get it because they'd be like, nah, we know he's going to cost us money.
Or if it'd be so high, he couldn't afford it.
Yeah, exactly. It would be so high he couldn't afford it. And so the fact that they make it impossible for you to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions is life-saving and life-changing for a lot of people. And the only reason you can do that is you increase the pool of people who are insured so that the healthy people help pay for the sick people. And so you have to have them in the same pool. And that was the genius of Obamacare, that it did that and made it so they couldn't discriminate against people who have the pre-existing condition.
Will there ever be a situation where could he possibly get healthy enough, John, where he wouldn't have to take insulin?
I just had a conversation with his doctor today, and she said that's possible. And by the way, technology keeps improving when it comes to diabetes care. And so I hope for a day when he doesn't need to be on insulin. But for now, he does, and lots of people do, and it over-indexes with black and brown people. And so we need a system where it's more affordable for everybody.
How did you How did you know? How did the doctors find out that he was diabetic?
Well, he got sick. He was at football camp. He was at football camp, and the whole camp got sick. So it was something in the food or the drink that they were having, and everybody got this disease. It's kind of like salmonella. It's called Shigella.
Okay.
And so everybody got sick, and he went to the hospital. We didn't know what it was at the time, but he was one of the first people that got sick. But almost the whole camp got sick. So he goes there and they're like, oh, his blood sugar is really elevated. Maybe it's because of the infection, but maybe he actually has high blood sugar. And they kept testing him and they did a resting blood sugar after a while. And they just were like, yeah, he's consistently elevated. His A1C is higher than normal. And so we think he has type 1. And so we started going down the path.
Wow. Last year, you celebrated your 10th year wedding anniversary, and you went back to Lake Como.
Yes.
You and the kids.
Yes.
And Chrissy. Why was that important for you to go back there?
It was, well, first of all, we loved our wedding, and we had such a beautiful time there. We fell in love at Lake Como. So one of our first vacations together was at Lake Como, and that's when I was like, oh, I'm feeling that. Like, it felt different. And so I was like, this is where we fell in love, and it's a beautiful, magical place. If anybody can afford to go there, I suggest you do it.
Right.
So we got married there, and as we were coming on this first big milestone, 10 years, we have 4 kids now. And we were like, we want to do it again with this bigger family. And also, we have people in our lives that we're really close to now that we weren't close to back then. And so it's nice to
share that moment,
include them into this moment too. And then when we did it, we were so happy we did it because we basically did a lot of the same things we did before. We had it at the same venue, and we had the same planner. But the biggest difference was having the kids there.
You got 4 kids now instead of
4 kids there, and we started crying when we pulled up to the venue and the kids are right there to greet us. That sent us right there, man. It was so special having that moment, celebrating this milestone together, everything we've been through as a couple, and then seeing the product of our love right there in front of us. It was beautiful, man.
You sang "I Don't Love You Like I Used to" at the event.
Yeah.
What did that song mean to you?
So that song is from my album Legend, and we wrote that song because the title's kind of provocative. It's like, I don't love you like I...
I'm like, hold on.
It's a breakup song.
Like, am I reading this correctly?
Exactly.
I don't love you like I used to. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and the whole idea, once you listen to the lyric, is that it's stronger now.
Right.
It's better now. It's deeper.
Yes.
It's more... I
love you more than I used to.
It's more tested. And when you're tested through challenge and trials and all the situations you go through together as a family, it's something deeper and stronger. And that's what the song's really about.
Wow.
And it's a perfect song for anniversary,
20-year anniversary of Get Lifted.
Yeah.
That was your debut album.
Yes, sir.
How were you able to come out the gate so strong?
Yeah. I think a lot of things came together at once. First of all, it was a great time for me and Kanye to meet. So we met in 2001. We were both unsigned at the time, but he had just started producing with Jay-Z and the folks at Rockefeller Records. And when we started working together, I just found that our chemistry, our combination of different skills and different influences, when it came together, it worked.
Yes.
And we made music that was really interesting and different and special. And then he had just come out with College Dropout in February of 2004. So being signed to his production company and then being the first artist that came out under his production company, it was a great setup. So he's already succeeding, and I got signed almost right after his debut album came out, because all labels that had turned us down before, they turned us down. And it was the same demo, but when his album came out, sold 400,000 copies the first week. Oh, it sounded a lot better.
Right.
The demo sounded a lot better. So we played the same demo for him, but all of a sudden it sounded better. And then multiple labels wanted to sign me, and all of them had turned me down before. And so...
it's going to cost you a little more now.
Yeah, it cost them a little more. So signed with Columbia, but the setup was already really nice because of what happened with Ye. And so his album came out in February. I got signed in May. My first single, Used to Love You, came out in August, but then Ordinary People came out right around when the album came out in December. And Ordinary People was the song that really put me on the map. So you got to remember during this period, like nothing sounded like this on black radio. It was by itself. Like when it came on, it made people stop. People told me all the time, I stopped the car. I was like, what is this? Because it didn't sound like anything else on the radio. And it stood out as special. And that really became my signature. Like, I'm going to sing that heartfelt, honest song about love. A lot of times it's just stripped down, me and the piano. And I'm going to tell it like it is in this song and voice the things that people have a hard time voicing in their own words. And they're going to use my song to do it. And so that's been my signature ever since. But Ordinary People was the thing that really established that. And it was, the first station that played it was WGCI in Chicago. And it wasn't even being marketed as the single yet when they started playing it. We had a sampler out and we put Used to Love You, Ordinary People as full songs. And this is in the CD era. So we hand out CDs with Ordinary People and Used to Love You as the full songs and then snippets of 3 other songs before my album came out. So we would give that to folks at my shows, but also give it to radio stations. And we were telling them to play Used to Love You. And some of them were playing it, but WGCI was like, oh, we playing another song. We're playing Ordinary People. And it became a hit in Chicago, and then it started to spread to other black radio stations around the country. And then it crossed over some, but mostly it was a black radio phenomenon. And it really put me on the map and changed my life.
Is it true now, like I said, at the concert, at the Hollywood Bowl, you were telling the story that it was originally written by Black Eyed Peas?
Yes. Me and will.i.am, we had the same manager at the time, and we had written together before. We wrote She Don't Have to Know, which is on Get Lifted. We had written songs for the Black Eyed Peas, and we had a nice rapport. So whenever he was working on a new album, he's like, John, come by, let's write some songs. And so he would just play beats, and I would just hum whatever came to my head, and we'd try to write some hooks for the Black Eyed Peas. And Ordinary People started as a hook that I wrote for them over a hip-hop beat. But a couple days later, I was like, you can keep every other idea we wrote, but I think I want to keep Ordinary People for myself. And I was like, I think it'll work better actually as a ballad.
I think so.
And so I was on the road with Kanye in Europe, and every sound check, I would write more of the verses to Ordinary People. I finished it on the road with him, and then I came back home to the States and recorded it. And I recorded it as a demo, and I was like, Will, you can produce it. I'm just going to record the piano and the vocal. And the more we all listened to it, we were like, let's just leave the demo alone. So the version that eventually made the album was just the piano vocal demo that I was sending to Will originally just as a demo for him to produce up and arrange and put, whatever he was going to put on it. But it ended up sounding better just stripped down, so we just left it that way.
Is it true Ordinary People was about the situation that your family had gone through? Because your mom and dad, even though they separated, they had gotten back together, and we're saying we're just ordinary people.
Yeah, we don't know which way to go. And I wasn't in like a serious relationship at the time, so I wasn't speaking from direct personal experience in my own relationship. I was still like a bachelor doing my thing, having fun. But my parents, I had seen the ups and downs with them, and that was really directly informing what I was writing for Ordinary People.
Wow. Now, you mentioned Kanye, and I don't know Kanye from this glass of water here, but I know he seems like a perfectionist. Is that everything has to be lined up, or it's not getting out the door.
Yeah.
How is his writing, his style of doing things different than yours?
We're different, but I feel like us together works really well because we have different strengths.
Okay.
And he's such a great producer, a great beat maker, and he's also just exceptionally creative. Like his mind, it goes all over the place.
Yes.
And he's creative visually. So he directed the video for Ordinary People.
Wow.
And, he's a fashion designer. He's a director. He's a visionary. And so he just came with different strengths than what I came with. Now, I'm a great songwriter, obviously. I'm a pianist. I'm a musician. I have a more theoretical understanding of music. And so we just came at it with different abilities. I came from gospel and soul. He came from hip hop. And so I think us coming together just complemented each other, and it worked really well.
Is this around the time, I think it was someone in his group Your name was John Stevens,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, "Come on, Legend, give us that beat. Come on, Legend, come." Hey, they kept calling you John Legend.
Jay Ivy. So Jay Ivy, he's a spoken word artist. He makes records himself. He's a great human being and a great artist himself. But he, if you listen back to "Never Let Me Down" on College Dropout,
Right.
he did a verse on there, and he was hanging out with us. We were in LA mostly when we were making College Dropout at Record Plant, and he was at some of the sessions. He started calling me the Legend, and eventually that morphed into John Legend. And I didn't think I was really gonna become John Legend, as a stage name. I've been John Stevens my whole life. And I wasn't, I didn't think there was anything wrong with my name as a stage name. But eventually enough people were calling me that I started thinking about it. And part of me like, how you gonna call yourself a legend? You don't even have a record deal yet. Part of me said that, but the other part was like, you know what? If I call myself this, it's gonna make people pay attention to what I do.
Yes.
And it's a great stage name in the sense that it makes people take notice.
Yeah.
And then the only thing I had to do was try to live up to it once they took notice. And so my goal was, don't f this up. If you're gonna call yourself this, you better come correct.
You better be a legend.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that my whole career, I feel like part of my mission is to make sure I live up to this name that was given to me before I even earned it.
Now, a lot of people don't know there was a gentleman had the name John Legend.
So
you told the story. Tell this story. I don't know if a lot of people know this story.
So, well, first of all, y'all, if you understand, Shannon's been to my show, and for the last 2 years, I've been doing this show where I tell stories about my life and all these things. So he learned a lot. He did his homework, and so anybody that's been to my show knows the story, but a lot of people haven't been. So as soon as we decide, I'm going with John Legend as a name, I start going to record labels, introducing myself that way, and I got signed, and they understood that they were putting out a record with John Legend. But eventually my lawyer's like, oh, by the way, we need to trademark John Legend as a name. And so when you start trademarking, the key with trademark is if you're in the same business, you can't have a name that's too much like somebody else's name because you could confuse people.
Right.
Okay, so they start researching to see if there's any other musicians named Johnny Legend or John Legend. And they find a guy named Johnny Legend, and he's mainly a porn producer. That was his main day job, but he also made music on the side, and he had records, like rockabilly records. And so you could theoretically go into a record store and find a Johnny Legend record. And if there's a John Legend record, it could be confusing to somebody, and he could have a case to say, yo, this guy stole my name. So we had to find him and negotiate with him so that he's Johnny Legend, I'm John Legend, and we're not going to sue each other. And we broke him off a little money and said, we're doing this so that you won't come back and sue him later. And you're Johnny Legend, he's John Legend. And we had no problems since.
You also was telling the story that on Everything Is Everything with Lauryn Hill, that's you on the piano. Yeah. How many people, before you started telling this story at your show, how many people actually knew that was you on the piano?
Oh, they didn't know, unless they saw me doing a deep cut interview or something like that. There's a lot of songs that I was a part of, and I do a whole little segment during my show. Where I bet you didn't know this was me. I sang backup on Alicia Keys and co-wrote American Boy for Estelle. So a lot of hit songs that you didn't know I was a part of, I was a part of. And so that was, in the beginning of my career where I'm paying my dues and just getting in on sessions and doing what I could do, even though I knew I wanted to be a solo artist and make it as a singer-songwriter. I got in where I fit in, and I was doing this and doing that and trying to get on any record I could.
I think you said you got $500 for that.
$500.
And was that Columbia Records?
Columbia Records.
And that you ended up signing with?
So the same label I ended up signing with, by coincidence, was the label that put out Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Right.
And my first appearance on a major record was getting $500 to play piano for Lauryn Hill. And it was the same label that ended up signing me for a lot more than $500.
Yeah, I need restitution. I want my restitution for that. The NBA is finally back, and new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite player and prop bets you can make on DraftKings, home of the NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple as picking your team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. First time new DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code MONEYMOVES. That's Money Moves for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Apple Music ranked Miseducation the best album of all time. It was also the first ever hip-hop album to win Album of the Year at the Grammys, and remains Lauryn Hill's only solo album to date. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised that she hasn't put out a sophomore project, or junior project, or a senior project? That's it?
Well, I think we'd all love to hear what's on her mind now, you know? And that album was so impactful for so many people, especially artists like myself. So not just because I was on it, and that was big too, but during that time, so I'm a young, soulful artist who's being influenced by gospel, R&B, classic soul, hip hop, and to have Miseducation of Lauryn Hill come out just as I'm starting to form my own vision of what I want to be as an artist, it was so influential to me, and so influential to so many young artists at that time. It was like the prototype for what like a new soulful hip hop record could be, and so we were looking to her as like the prototype for what we should sound like, and we all would love to hear more, but you know, for some reason it just hasn't happened.
Right. What was she like in the studio?
She was very vibrant, very creative, very collaborative. It was only that one night where we were in the studio together. We ended up making another record together, a remix to So High from my first album, but we weren't in the studio together when she did her part on it. I did it with Wyclef. He produced it, and then he produced her session. So I wasn't in the studio with her the second time. And the only other time I was in the studio with her was auditioning for her band.
Right.
So the first time I was in the studio was playing piano and Everything Is Everything, and that was just impromptu. I was just hanging out, and during a break when they were writing,
it was like, you play.
My friend was like, Johnny, get over there and show her you can play. So I get over there, sit on the piano, and sing a couple songs. And she's like, why don't you play on the record we're working on now? And that was Everything Is Everything. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if they were going to use what I did on there. But a few months later, I got the call from the label, and they were like, we need to know how to spell your name for the credits, and how much do you want?
Million. But last name is Millions. Did you know that song was going to do what it did?
No, I didn't know the album was, but I think there was a lot of expectation around her because the Fugees had already had a huge hit with the score. So the score had come out in '96, and Killing Me Softly was the biggest hit from that. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's like, the girl that sings, we need to hear her do a whole album together, do a whole album by herself. And so everybody was wondering when she was going to go solo. And Wyclef had done The Carnival, and then Lauryn was about to put out Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So there was a lot of expectation around it, but you never know how it's going to do. And then when it comes out, it's just like epic. It's classic. It's immediately world-changing when it comes out. And I was just proud to be a part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you co-wrote with Janet Jackson, I Want You. How was it working with Janet in the studio?
We actually wrote that without her in the studio. Okay. It was me, Harold Lilly, Kanye. We wrote it and then submitted it to her, and she loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that like, John? What's that like? Like, we grew up with the Jacksons. We grew up with Michael. We grew all up, obviously Michael, then Janet. All of them. LaToya had her own thing. Jermaine did his own thing. But we mainly know Michael and Janet. And
I had a crush on Janet, man.
You had a crush on Penny?
If you ask me who my childhood crush was, it was Janet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's it like? So let me ask you a question. So like when you go, Do artists reach out to you, or do when you write and says, you know what, I think this would be great for her.
Well, there's a whole bevy of songwriters and producers who aren't on the mic, but they're behind a lot of the music that you love. So a lot of artists work with songwriters. They get submissions from songwriters. Sometimes they collaborate with you in the room, but sometimes they just take submissions, and their A&R or their producer is helping them listen to those songs and decide whether or not it's going to work for them. So there's a lot of people who are professionally just cranking out songs and submitting them to artists. Sometimes artists will do a camp. So they'll say, I'm going to bring all the songwriters and producers I like to work with, that I have a track record with, or that I love their work. I'm going to bring them all to Jamaica or the Bahamas or whatever, and we're going to camp out for a week or two and just write with the goal of producing enough songs that will go on my next album. So one way or another, artists are trying to get material, and a lot of times it's professional songwriters, people you may not have heard of, but that are behind the scenes involved in a lot of making of these songs.
Is it hard to write like that when you go for a specific reason, like you get invited to this place and you mentioned this camp, so we're going for a week or two, or is it easier just for it to come natural?
Well, I don't do that, so you'd have to ask them, but I imagine sometimes it's easier to write when you have a specific goal in mind.
Okay.
So when you're in a camp, you know the artist you're writing for. The artist is usually there. They're providing kind of creative direction and spiritual guidance of, of where their head is and what they want to say on their album. And so I think it's easier for me to write when I have an assignment than when it's just open-ended. And so I'd rather have some sense of like, I know who I'm writing for, I have some direction, rather than just write.
Right. Didn't you write a song with Mike?
We wrote a song, me and will.i.am wrote a song for Mike that never came out,
Right.
So, that was back in those days when I was hustling, just trying to get on records. And, I work with different producers and they're like, yeah, we're trying to get on Mike's new album or Janet's new album or Jay's new album and work with me on this. And sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But that's the life of a songwriter. Like if that's your job, a lot of the songs you make will not come out. A lot of the ideas you generate may never see the light of day.
But when you're writing, you just hope you can get one or two.
Yeah.
You get one or two, that's your end.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, I want to go to that guy that wrote this, or I want to go to the woman that wrote that.
And even with myself, I will often write a bunch of songs for myself or with other people for myself that don't make my album. So I got a bunch, like lots and like dozens and dozens of songs that may never be heard by anybody other than the people that made it.
What about, is that something that you'd be willing to like, okay, it didn't make my album, I don't think it's right for me, but it might be right for you?
Sometimes, but often I feel like if it's written for a male singer and it didn't make my album, there's not a great chance that it's the best of the best. And oftentimes I don't feel like it's marketable to other artists. Sometimes it's just not the right feel for me, and maybe it would be the right feel for another artist. But a lot of times I'm just like, well, if I don't want it, then why should they? Yeah, why should they want it?
But you was working with Nipsey Hussle. You won a Grammy for Higher with DJ Khaled.
Yeah.
So what was it like working? So let me ask you a question. Your artist, when you go into a studio, and whomever it is, it doesn't have to be anybody in particular. So what's John Legend's goal when he goes into the studio with an artist?
I just want to make the record amazing. So I want to make it something that I'm proud of, that will make history. I want my legacy to be my records.
Right.
And so every time I go in there, I'm going in with that goal of making something special, life-changing, legacy building. And with Khaled, people always ask me, what does Khaled actually do? Does he do this, that? But part of what he does that's so important is he brings all these different artists together. He has a great ear, and he is able to bring the right beat with the right artist, with the right rapper, with the right singer, put it all together and make a record. And that's not a simple thing to do, because if everybody could do it, they would be doing it.
Correct.
But he's doing it.
Right.
So he is great at connecting people, bringing things together, hearing a beat and be like, I can hear Nipsey on this one. I can hear Hove on this one. I can hear Drake on this one. Bringing those people together, having the relationships with them and bringing them together to make the record happen, that's not an easy thing to do. Right. And that's what Khaled does. And so he's brought me in on a bunch of records. And it's funny, he won his first Grammy with that record.
Wow.
So this record we made together, Higher, with Nipsey. We won the Grammy after Nipsey passed. And what's wild about it for me and Khaled is the first song we did together was a song called Grammy Family. And we made a song called Grammy Family long before he ever had a Grammy.
Right.
And then many years later, I helped him win his first Grammy. So that was pretty cool.
Who hasn't John Legend worked with that he would like to work with?
This is, honestly, I get this question. I'm like, I'm trying to find names. Like I've said Beyonce before, which is true. I'd love to work with her.
Adele. What about Adele?
Adele, I've said that too. That's funny you said that. So I've said both of those names, and then a lot of people I would like to work with, I have worked with.
Right.
So, I've been fortunate, man. I've worked with legends like Stevie Wonder, Quincy Jones, Tony Bennett, Al Green, and then a lot of my peers in R&B and hip hop, pop, K-pop, like all over the place. I've worked with a lot of different people, and I love it. I love collaborating.
When you talk about Stevie,
Yeah.
legend,
Yeah.
Quincy Jones,
Yeah.
legend, are you nervous?
You know, the first time I met Stevie, I was a little nervous. It was,
Because he's a prodigy like you.
oh yes, and if there's any artists that are the biggest influences in my life and the music that I make, Stevie, Marvin, those are like two of them. And so I knew his catalog backwards and forwards. like he meant so much to my life. And the first time we meet, we're about to rehearse together for the BET Awards in 2005. So Ordinary People, like I said, my first big signature song that really was a genuine hit. And I was about to get honored at the BET Awards. And Stephen Hill, the guy who used to produce the BET Awards, he said, I want you and Stevie to do a mashup of Ordinary People and My Sharia Moore. And people may not know, but the Take It Slow, that part of the song has the same chord structure as la 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 from My Sharia Moore.
Right.
And so Stephen heard that and knew it and was like, y'all should do it together. And so my first time meeting Stevie was singing My Sharia Moore as a mashup with Ordinary People at the BET Awards. So we rehearsed it. And I was nervous in rehearsal, but here I am with Stevie Wonder. And I'm just trying to make sure we do it right and everything like that. But I was definitely like, yo, pinch me. I'm like in a room with somebody I've been looking up to my whole life.
What about when you met Quincy Jones?
When I met Quincy, well, this is a wild story. I've never told this story. Now, the first time I spoke to Quincy, I was getting reprimanded.
Wow. What'd you do?
I didn't do it. It wasn't my fault.
Uh-oh, this is gonna be good.
Let's take a drink first. So, after Ordinary People blows up, Oprah is planning a thing called the Legends Ball, where she was going to honor all the Black women that meant a lot to her. So she had like Aretha, Rosa Parks, Diane Carroll, Cicely Tyson, I think Toni Morrison, like all these, like just like the who's who of
the legends.
But exactly. She called it the Legends Ball. And she was planning this Legends Ball. And I got a call from my agent and they were like, Oprah Winfrey wants to call you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I was excited. So Oprah calls me up. John, I'm planning this thing called the Legends Ball. And by the way, in my show, I always say, I'm glad I changed my name to John Legend because otherwise I wouldn't have been invited to the Legends Ball. But she called me up, asked me to play at this event for like the luncheon during the day. And I believe we had the same agency at the time. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'll talk to your agents and work it all out. And apparently my agency was like, decided they were going to ask for everything from Oprah and like make it like it wasn't an honor and a privilege for me to be at this event. And, she was still doing her talk show at the time. And if you appeared on her talk show, it could change your life.
Correct.
And so they were trying to like do all this negotiation and play hardball with Oprah for me to come and sing at this event when I would have done it for free.
Right.
I would have been happy.
I paid my own way to go.
Exactly. I would have paid my own way to go, all of that. So it comes back to my team that Oprah was a little put off by the way my agency was playing hardball with her. And somehow Quincy got wind of this.
Uh-oh. I think she called Quincy on you, man.
Well, she's friends with Quincy, and I'm friends with her now. I'm friends with Oprah now, so we all good. But at the time, she's like, what's going on? And Quincy calls me up like, man, you need to talk to your people because whatever they doing representing you, like,
it's not a good representation.
It's not a good representation. It's not a good look. You're messing up your relationship with somebody who is, you know, obviously could be very helpful in your career. And why? Like, because you're trying to get a little extra money and not thinking about the big picture. And I was so embarrassed, man. The first time I talked to Quincy Jones is him reprimanding me because my agent was trying to play hardball with Oprah. And so...
But he's being an agent.
Yeah, he's being an agent, but like when people are representing you, they're representing you.
Correct.
And that's why you got to be careful about who you let represent you.
Correct.
And so, you know, I learned that lesson. And also, like, I knew, like, it was an honor to play this event. And if he was representing me, really, he would have known that I would have been honored to play this event, and he didn't need to play hardball in this situation. There are times when you should play hardball, and there's other times when the opportunity is enough where you don't need to get paid cash for it or you don't need something in return. The opportunity is enough.
Right. Is All of Me the greatest song you've ever written? I don't know. I think, you know, a lot of many people say All of Me. Some people say Ordinary People.
I actually like Ordinary People a little bit more as a song personally, but part of it's just sentimental because it was so early in my career and it meant so much to me even being where I am now that it's hard for me to imagine my career without it. And it laid the foundation for All of Me to work because once people understood that, you know, man, John Legend, he gonna sit down at the piano.
Ordinary People created John Legend.
Yeah, exactly. It really, like, it set the table for everything else to happen after that. But All of Me by far is the biggest song of my career.
Yes.
It's one of the most popular songs of all, like, literally of all time. Like, when it comes to streaming, when it comes to all the
sold
the numbers.
over 40 million records worldwide. It's diamond, 14 times platinum.
Yeah.
All of Me dethroned Pharrell Williams' Happy on the Billboard Hot 100.
It's my only number one on the Hot 100. And it's truly still the number one song. If you go to my, you know, any of the streaming platforms, it's the number one song that's played because it still means a lot to people and they still play it at their weddings and their anniversaries and whenever they want to dedicate something to somebody they love. All of Me, their go-to.
Because you told a story that you wrote that song for Chrissy.
Yeah.
Forgive me, but I was hoping, I was like, man, if I ever, hopefully I can recall all the stories that he's telling because they're so good. And like I'm saying, I'm not so sure that people will know this if they haven't gone to a show. And I know they're not going to have the recall that I'm able to recall. But you wrote this story, All of Me, for Chrissy. Tell me what the thought process was. What was going through your mind when you're like, I want to write a song for my wife?
Well, I was writing for my fiance at the time, and honestly, during that time, I'm like thinking about the fact that we're going to get married, and I wanted to write a song dedicated to her. And one day, my manager sent me this Billy Joel song called "She's Always a Woman," and she was like, "You should write a song like that for Chrissy." And I was like, "You're right." And I just started really just thinking about our relationship and what she means to me and what makes our relationship special. And you know, like I told you before, like some part of what makes our relationship special is that we're not exactly alike.
Yes.
And there's like a push and pull and a yin and yang situation. And the fact that we complement each other really well. And really All of Me was born out of that idea that it's like, you're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. It's like a lot of push and pull in the lyric. And
those perfect imperfections.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it's like about things that are kind of opposites coming together. And I think that's what makes it work, is people see their own relationship in the song, and it came from a really honest place about my own. And I always tell songwriters, part of what you have to do is be very personal, but also be very universal at the same time. And so like the songs that really land are the ones that come from such a real, honest place.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yes.
But also have this universal appeal and applicability to everybody else's life. And so that's my best songs are the ones that have that personal side, specific side, but also are universal.
Right. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think anytime you're with somebody for a long time, you see everything.
Yes.
And that's the whole idea of the song is like, you see everything. And nobody's perfect all the time. Everybody's got moments when they're not at their best. And when you are able to see that and still love that person, that's when you know you're in the right place. Yeah.
Yes. When it's kind of like I've asked artists before, like, give me your favorite songs, and they say, well, it's kind of like kids. I don't have a favorite.
Yeah.
But you do. You do. You do. You absolutely
well,
do.
I think a lot of times for artists, a lot of it is about the place you were in your life.
Okay.
During that time. So that one's always gonna be special because it was right before we got married.
Right.
And the first time I sang it in front of an audience was at our wedding.
Yes.
And so it's always gonna mean that to me. We filmed the video at the place where we got married the week of the wedding. The same guy who introduced us filmed the video. He's the same director that made that very first video, Nabil Elderkin. He directed the All of Me video too, and we did it in the place where we fell in love. So it's always gonna be super meaningful to me because of that.
Prior to you singing the song, has she ever heard it?
She heard it the first time at home. I was like really proud of it. And I've never done this before. And I've never done it since. I came home and sang it to her in her ear. Like literally, like as we were about to go to bed, I sang her this song. I was like, I love this song. I wrote this for you. And she started crying.
I was about that. She had to. She had to.
And I've never done that since or before. So I knew something was special about it. And one of the things about writing a hit song, like the problem is, as a songwriter, you're excited whenever you finish the song, even if it don't even end up making the album. So sometimes it's hard for me to distinguish between me being excited that I finished it and it actually being one of my greater songs. And so sometimes you need a little time, you need to play it for other people before you actually know, oh, this is the one. But I loved it and I felt like it was special that day. But like I said, I fall in love with all my songs when I first write them. So the more I would play it for other people, I'm like, played it for Frank Ocean. He's like, oh my God, this one, special. Played it for Kanye. He's like, oh my God, that one, special. And like, I played it for all these different people in my life, people with different tastes, different ears. And all of them kept coming back to that one. I was like, oh, we got one. And it's crazy because it wasn't the first single again, just like Ordinary People wasn't the first single. It wasn't the first single for that album. But I told my label, I was like, this could be my biggest song ever. Please don't f this up. Please don't f it up. Like you have to invest in it. You have to put time in it. And the way it works with R&B artists is that we usually get promoted at Urban AC, which is a station. Urban AC stands for Urban Adult Contemporary, which is basically short for Black adults. Yeah. So it's like black, it's R&B, but not rap,
right?
Basically. But that's a relatively small portion of the country. So if you're only being played on Urban AC, it's not going to be a huge hit song.
Right.
And what I was telling them, and we were doing well with All of Me at Urban AC. That's my home format. That's where most of my records are played. And that's fine. But I was like, yo, this song is not just an R&B record. It could be everywhere.
It's got to be multicultural.
Yeah. And so I was like, don't f it up. Like, this could be my biggest song ever. And finally, they started trying to cross it over to pop. And this was months after it came out. It had already been #1 on Urban AC for a while. And what happened was, so it came out in like the fall or maybe late summer of 2013. It didn't become a smash until spring 2014. And what happened was, one, they finally started trying to cross it over to pop radio in early 2014. And then I sang it at the Grammys, and they had like this spotlight on me, but also on Chrissy at the same time. And it was like a moment. And soon as I sang it at the Grammys, it shot up the iTunes charts, which was a thing at the time. We don't even care about the iTunes charts anymore. But iTunes isn't even a thing anymore.
Right.
But it shot up the iTunes charts after that performance, and then eventually it shot up the overall charts and became a #1 song for weeks at a time. But it was many months after it came out, and it took a long time working at one format, and then finally crossing it over. The Grammys, all that together made it the hit that it was.
When you sang it at the event, did you get a standing ovation?
Oh yeah, everybody loved it, and it was a moment. Like social media was around then, like Twitter and everything, and everybody was talking about it, and you saw it immediately. You could see with iTunes charts, like it was instant feedback.
Right.
And it was happening immediately, and I'm getting emails, texts from my team, like, "Yo, John, like your numbers are going crazy everywhere," and it changed my life. That moment shot it up every chart, and it became the global smash that it was because of it.
Give me your top 5 songs that you think you've written.
So All of Me and Ordinary People will get 2 out of 5. I'm going to say Again is one of my favorite songs I've written.
Okay.
It's on my second album. Once again, it's not a hit song. It wasn't even a single, but I just love it. If you ever watch Def Poetry Jam back in the day, I sang it on Def Poetry Jam, which is kind of blasphemous. You're supposed to be a poet on Def Poetry Jam, but that was my version of poetry. So that's 3 out of 5. I'm going to say Glory.
Yeah. Man, if you didn't say Glory, man, I get John, every time I hear that song, I get emotional.
Yeah.
It is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is almost like 500 years of our ancestors are calling out.
Yeah. And I grew up studying the civil rights movement. That was inspiring to me.
Yes.
I'm this nerdy kid and homeschooled, and one of the things that inspired me was going to the library and reading about all these folks that fought for us to have the life that we have now. And I was always influenced by them, and people always ask me, why you speak out about politics and stuff all the time? And so much of it is rooted in understanding what my ancestors did to fight for me to have the freedoms that I have. And I don't want to take that for granted. And I look at them as an example of what it means to live a meaningful life. And I always knew that I wanted to be a musician, but also that I was going to use this platform that this life has given me to do something else bigger than just my own personal career. It's actually make a difference in the world and use a platform that I have to make a difference. And all of my favorite artists did it, like Stevie, Marvin, Aretha, Nina Simone. Like all these artists knew that it was a special thing for them to have the platform that they had.
Right.
So not only did they use their platform, they used their money, they funded the civil rights movement.
Yes.
Like Harry Belafonte and Aretha, they were sending money to Dr. King. They were bailing him out of jail. They were paying for rallies, paying to get folks out of jail. And then their songs were being used as the fuel and the inspiration for these marches that folks were on. So I always looked at that as like, oh, that's what an artist is supposed to do.
Right.
And so when I wrote Glory for Selma, it was like partly just fulfilling the role that I always thought artists were supposed to play. And if you remember at this time, we're partly responding to the film, but we're also responding to Ferguson and the shooting of Michael Brown and the protests that were happening in the streets of Ferguson, but also all around the country. And Common, when he wrote his lyrics for the verses, he was directly referencing, we're walking through Ferguson with our hands up. And so we were always writing for 1965 and for 2014 at the same time. And that's why that song's always going to be special, because it was so inspired by the moment, so inspired by our ancestors, and then it turned around and inspired more people to march.
Right.
So those same people that were marching in Ferguson that inspired us to write the song, they were marching a few years later with our song.
Right. When I think about it and hear you say that, I hear when Marvin Gaye wrote for Vietnam, there's far too many of us dying.
Yeah.
You hear Neil Simone singing A Strange Fruit.
And Mississippi, goddamn.
Yeah. And the most famous one is Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come.
Yeah.
I think when I hear glory and I hear a change is gonna come, I get the same emotion. I mean, I'm starting to get chills now just thinking about it, because he's saying, we're gonna one day when you're saying glory, we're gonna rise up, we're gonna overcome.
Yes.
Sam is saying a change is gonna come. It doesn't seem like it, but I know a change is gonna come.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about the experience of Black people in America, we've had such a hard time in this country, and we're a permanent minority. We're never going to be the majority in this country.
Nope.
And so we're always going to be at a disadvantage in some way. But we've still, despite all the evidence, despite all the setbacks we've encountered, we've maintained a hope that we could help fuel the change in this country and make it better for ourselves and for our kids. And we've done the work to try to make this country live up to its ideals since day one.
Yeah. We just want you to be what you said you're going to be on that paper.
What you said you were going to be.
That's all. We don't want anything more.
You said all men were created equal.
We just want
Let's do that.
Just be what you said you're going to be on paper.
Yes.
Selling your catalog, you sold your catalog. Was that a hard decision? So basically the songs from 2000.
Hold on. I didn't give you my top 5. I gave you 4.
You gave 4. Okay.
Let me think. Number 5.
You haven't written it yet?
I don't know, man. I got some favorites. Ooh. Number 5. I'm gonna say Wonder Woman from my latest album is in my top 5.
Wow.
Yeah. That one feels special, and it really, like, after seeing everything that Chrissy and I have been through together, it just felt special to write that song for her. And we really wrote it thinking about mothers and motherhood and how difficult it is and how we should honor that. And that song's always going to be special to me, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Once you said Wonder Woman, I knew it was for Chrissy.
But it's also thinking about...
for women.
Yeah, and not just women, but I think motherhood, Mothers. I was really inspired by seeing how much of a challenge it is to be a mother and all the things your body goes through and everything that's so difficult about it, and just honoring that.
Selling your catalog.
Yeah.
So basically everything from 2004 to 2021. All of Me, Ordinary People, Glory, but you still own 50% of the catalog. Was that a hard decision? I mean, how did you come to that decision, say, you know what, I'll sell 50% of it?
So my decision was, one, I thought the market for it was at a high at that time, so I felt like I was getting a very good price. And then secondly, it enables me to diversify, so I can take the cash that they gave me for that and put my money into other investments that would diversify my portfolio to the point where I'm not only reliant on my music as my way of generating equity and income in the future and wealth in the future.
Gotcha.
And so that was really the decision.
Right.
I felt like it was a high point in the market, and then the opportunity to take that money and diversify it.
But if an artist were to ask you, say, John, what should I do? I mean, I saw what you did.
Well, the cool thing about it, and for me, this would have been a deal breaker if I couldn't, was I still have enough control that I can say, you can't use it for this, you can't use it for that.
Okay.
And there's still a lot of control in my hands and a lot of restrictions on how it can be used. And so they can't just be out there doing anything they want willy-nilly with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you team independent or signing with a major label?
I think times have changed. You know, when I came out, it was clear that it was better to be with a major label. The level of investment that it took to actually record an album was so much more. Now you can have the equipment to do it all at home, really. And so it doesn't cost, $500,000 to make an album, $1 million to make an album. You can do it with a lot less. And then now the distribution isn't as physical anymore, even though people still buy vinyl and a little bit of physical product. Most of it is digitally distributed. And so an independent artist can be on Spotify and Apple Music and Tidal, and a major label artist can. The major label still has some advantages. They have more marketing money. They have relationships and experience that you may not bring to the table, but you can still do a lot of the functions of a record label on your own now. So I think the bar, is higher for a record label to say, come to us.
Right.
It means they really have to prove to you that they're worth it by investing in you, by using their relationships and expertise
and their
resources, and they have them. And so if they deploy them on your behalf, it can be helpful. And you may not have those resources, and so that's when you got to make the decision. But a lot of times, people are blowing up on social media first with TikTok and different things, and it kind of circumvents the gatekeepers and the labels that normally you'd have to impress them first before you could get heard by people. But now you can get heard, and now they come knocking on your door because you were able to get yourself heard without them.
Right.
Even with Drake, earlier before TikTok, he was on mixtapes and he generated enough buzz with his mixtapes that he had a bidding war, and he eventually signed with a major label. But his price, yesterday's price, is not today's price.
Correct.
Like it went up,
right?
And so you have to use whatever leverage you have and build up your own leverage through working your own product to the people to make it so if you do sign with a label, you're getting them at the price that you deserve, to where you have leverage and you have control.
Right. Prince gave you some advice. He said, don't get taken advantage of in the music industry, and own as much of your masters as you and publishing as you possibly can.
And the thing is, that advice goes to anybody, but the bottom line is your negotiating power is what it is. And like the more you're able to do on your own, like Drake did, like any artist that goes independent first, the more you can come to the label if you do get in a situation with them. And you can say, well, I'm actually going to own my masters. We're going to do a joint venture deal, but I still want to own these masters. Or I can do this, I can do that. You can't just say I want it.
Right.
You have to have the leverage to be able to command that.
Right.
And so the further I've gone in my career, I've had more leverage to negotiate the kinds of things that I want to do. But early on in your career, you may have to make, like early on in my career, I signed through Kanye's production company. And some people would say, don't do that because you're going to give half of whatever you're getting from the label to Kanye, or you're going to give a certain percentage to Kanye. But you rather have 50% of a big number than
or 100% of nothing.
Than 100% of a small number. And so you got to do the math.
You got to weigh the odds.
Yeah, and so it's like, if this opportunity is great enough, just like telling Oprah, you got to pay me blah, blah, blah to come and do this event. No, the opportunity is so important for you that don't fight for the money now. You're investing in your future in the long run if you do this event. And so it's like, you got to think short term and long term when it comes to these kinds of deals. Like, what's going to pay off in the future? And you'd rather have 60%, 50% of millions of dollars than 100% of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And you want Oprah on your side.
Exactly.
But I think Prince was speaking from personal knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Because he got into it, I think with Sony, I think it was
Warner Brothers. Yeah, Warner Brothers.
He had gotten into it with them.
Yes.
And you see I don't know. I mean, you talking about talent beyond, on top of talent, on top of talent.
Of course, one of the most gifted artists we've ever had.
Are we going to see another Prince?
It's hard, man. And, I saw Jermaine Dupri on his Instagram the other day talking about one of the issues in Black music is that since folks don't go to church anymore, or they don't go to church like they used to, a lot of the training ground for a lot of musicians like myself and so many other artists that we've grown up listening to, they all started in church.
Right.
And the thing about church, one of the things about church is that you have opportunity every week to practice, to hone your craft, to play for a tough crowd. Like, you are developing your chops in a way that there's very few other outlets that are like that for Black kids. To develop your chops to become a better musician that the church offers. And so I fear we're like not having enough of those training grounds for artists to be multi-instrumentalists like Prince was and be really just talented musicians. And there's so many shortcuts around it now with AI, with auto-tune, with all these other things. Like, I feel like we're losing some of that development when it comes to people becoming great at music, great at playing an instrument, great at being a vocalist and being tested out there in the real world.
You mentioned Frank Ocean, that you sent him your album to that song.
Well, I played it for him.
Not the album, but you played the song for him. Frank Ocean, a lot of people say he finessed the system. He had one more album to do on Def Jam. I think it's Def Jam.
I'm not familiar with his business situation, so
but he did that, and then he gave Apple exclusive a better album.
I mean,
even Swap ain't no swindler. John.
I honestly, knowing Frank, I don't think he's calculating in that sense. Like, this man is an artist,
right?
And he's going to do what he's going to do as an artist. I don't think he's sitting there doing the math like, well, I owe them this and I'm going to give them a weaker album. He's not doing that.
Right.
He's an artist and he cares so much about his craft.
Right.
He's going to come out with his music when he wants to come out with it, but it's going to be based on the art.
Right.
And I don't think he's driven by the numbers. I think he's driven by his commitment
the product
to being an
and putting
artist.
out the best product he possibly can.
Yeah.
All right, let's get something that you're very, very passionate about, and you mentioned about this. This has been a long thing in your history.
Yeah.
It's politics.
Yeah.
And we got Madam VP Kamala Harris, and she's going against former President Trump.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing here is a shift, is that a lot more Black men and women seem to be leaning towards President Trump.
Yeah.
How do we ensure that whomever the candidate is, that they do what they say they're going to do to guard, when they're like, we want the Black vote, we want the Black vote, we want the Black vote, and they come to churches and they come to all this thing.
Yeah.
How do we ensure, John, that they do what they say they're going to do once they get in office?
First of all, I think I always start with, let's question the whole narrative that she's going to lose a bunch of Black men.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that's actually the case.
Okay.
And even if you look at the polls right now, even a little bit of drift is still...
She's still getting like
80-some%.
Mm-hmm.
So of all the human beings in America, of all the voters in America, Black people are going to vote for her at a higher percentage than any other people in the country.
Right.
So if she loses, it's not going to be on us.
Right.
Okay? And it's not going to be on Black men.
Correct.
Like, if we're voting for her, 4 out of 5 of us are voting for her, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't ever want the narrative to be, oh, Trump is winning Black men in droves. He might be going from 10% to 17%, which is meaningful. It might be enough to win Pennsylvania if he loses enough Black men. If she loses enough Black men in Philadelphia, it might tip Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So it's meaningful in that sense. But let's be clear: Black men and Black women are in overwhelming numbers, more than any other demographic group in the country, going to vote for Kamala Harris. So let's start with that.
Okay.
But to the extent that she does lose any of them, we have to figure out why and do our best to go out there and convince folks to change their mind back to her. And she's going out there and doing the work.
Yes.
She's specifically targeting policies toward our community. Mm-hmm. She knows, for one, Black unemployment is lower than it's ever been. So that means we're working. That means we're generating income.
Right.
But one of the things she knows we could do better is generate wealth.
Correct.
And so a lot of her policies are around wealth building.
Right.
So it's one thing to have income. That's your job. That's your salary. Mm-hmm. But wealth is something we've been denied in this country because redlining excluded us from certain neighborhoods, made it hard for us to get a home loan so we could buy a house and build that wealth that we could pass on to our kids. So one of the biggest issues we've dealt with since we've been here, since we've been freed from slavery, was we couldn't have that kind of home equity that other families have had.
We didn't have the access.
And so the biggest gap is the wealth gap. It's not the income gap. Mm-hmm. So what is she doing to target that? She's saying, we're going to make it easier to make a down payment. We're going to, for first-time home buyers, we're going to give you $25,000. We're going to make sure there are more homes built that are affordable so that we increase the supply and make it more available for folks that have been excluded before. So you can make that investment in something that you can pass on to your kids and build wealth for your families. And then the other way we can build equity is through our own businesses.
Yeah.
And she's also making it easier for you to get a small business loan. And so these are things that are specifically targeted toward folks that have been excluded from the system before, excluded from wealth building before, and we're going to benefit more from this than any other group. And it's not only for us, but because the disparity is so big in our community, it's going to help us more than it helps other communities. And that is key, to have a president that is thinking about the actual issues that we face, knowing that there's a big wealth gap, and having specific policies targeted toward fixing that. She's doing that,
Right.
and her opponent is not doing it at all. And at the same time, her opponent is denigrating us, disrespecting us. Sometimes people talk about him, and they just talk about how he's kind of impolite. Like, he says things that he's not supposed to say. No, dig a little deeper. This man thinks we are inferior.
Yes.
He believes, when you notice when he talks about immigration, he's talking about black and brown people coming from the global south, and he says they are up our gene pool. They are poisoning the blood of America. So what he's saying is, the ideal version of America is a white America. And anytime brown people infiltrate America, they're messing up the blood of America. They're messing up the gene pool of America. And that takes us back to Hitler. That takes us back to eugenics. That takes us back to folks who believe there's a genetic hierarchy that's racially determined.
The race is superior to the other.
Yes. And I just can't imagine. It couldn't be me, a black man voting for somebody who believes so deeply that black men are inferior to him because we're black. I can't imagine doing it.
Right.
And I just don't see it happening in large numbers. And so I get people's concern if it's going from 10% to 17%. That is a concern. But I think most black men are gonna be like, the choice is clear. And I think most black women are gonna do the same thing. And, you know, I think of it as a father too. Like, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. There's not a chance in the world that I ever want any of my sons to grow up and be like Donald Trump. He is the opposite of what I want my kids to be. He's a liar. He's unaccountable.
Yeah.
He's a racist. He doesn't do the homework. Like, he's never prepared. He's a bully, doesn't pay people that he owes money to. Like, there's not a trait of his that you want your kid to have other than that he's rich. And he got rich from $400 million that his father gave him. How many of us have access to that? And so, like, as a father raising 2 sons, he's the exact example of what I don't want them to be.
Right.
And then as a father raising 2 daughters, Kamala's an example of what I would love for them to be. I would love for them to be her, to be as smart and focused and dedicated to service as she's been, to be as qualified as she is for this position. And as a father of 2 black girls, who up to this point would never have an example of a woman being president. Men have had plenty of chances to be president of this country of varying degrees of success and competence. It's about time we elect a woman to be president, and someone that's so qualified, so ready for the moment, who has clearly distinguished herself as the better candidate through policies, through just competence. Have you watched him talk lately? You watch his rallies. She tells everybody, watch his rallies. Please watch his rallies, y'all. If you're having any second thoughts about voting for Kamala Harris, watch one of her rallies and watch one of his. The comparison when it comes to competence, just being with it, like, it's not even close.
But when I hear black men and some black women say that money was flowing when President Trump, and I'm thinking to myself, I missed it. I must be out of the country those 4 years.
Well, your money's been doing very well lately.
But that's what I'm saying. Yes. This is what I tell people, and I'm trying to brag or put anybody down. But the Lord has blessed me. I'm in a situation.
Me too.
That it doesn't matter who the president is. This glass could be the president, and I'm going to be unimpacted by it.
And also, if we were being selfish, we'd be just fine with Trump winning because our taxes are going to go down. Yeah. He wants rich people to pay less in taxes. Yes. So if I'm being selfish, I'm voting for him because he's going to lower my taxes. If you're running a big corporation, he's very concerned about making sure you're paying lower taxes.
Right. I run a business.
Exactly. So if it were just up to our own selfish desires, we're in a tax bracket where he would benefit us. But I think we're both men of responsibility.
Yeah.
We care about.
He ain't gonna benefit enough of us, though.
Exactly.
That's my problem.
And I'm going to do fine either way. Like, I'm
Correct.
doing fine under Biden, paying higher taxes than I would under Trump. Either way, I'm doing fine.
Correct.
But I care about my responsibility to my community. And when I see someone with such contempt for my people,
Yes.
if I'm a Latino man, I watched that Republican National Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually went to the printer and made mass deportation now signs. Mass deportation now. Of all the things you could put on a sign, of all the things you could print up, the level of intention that has to go into having the whole arena holding mass deportation now signs, it means they really mean that shit. They mean it to their core. And what mass deportation now means, if you're a citizen now and you're a Latino man or you come from an immigrant family, you may be fine because you were born here. But there's somebody in your family. Most of these families are mixed status families. So some of them were born here and they have citizenship, but their grandmother, their aunt, their uncle, somebody in their family doesn't have status. So he's going to go through each of these communities and extract their family members and mass deport them. He's going to start by having the ICE or the police invade their homes, build a camp, a detention camp, some would say a concentration camp, to detain them and then forcefully send them back home. As a Latino man, I couldn't hear that and be like, oh, this is the guy I want to be in charge. Like, think about your community. Think about your family. As a black man, knowing how much contempt he has for us, how inferior he thinks we are. Every time there's a chance to side with either the police who shot us or us, the victim of it, he sides with the police. He said he wants blanket immunity.
Blanket.
For cops.
Police could do no wrong.
They can do no wrong. No accountability. They shoot us up, doesn't matter. No accountability. He wants that. It couldn't be me. Couldn't be me, Bober. And so hopefully people will analyze his record, analyze the difference between the policies that she's offering, which she actually put thought into and care into addressing our needs, and the fact that he's put no care or thought into it. And you know, I think another thing that he benefits from is the propaganda of him being on The Apprentice. So he was able to market himself as a successful businessman, not noting how many times he went bankrupt. And just be clear, when somebody goes bankrupt, it's not just that their business fails, it means they're not paying everybody they owe money to. That means they're not paying the contractors. So a lot of these folks were everyday contractors. They're not rich. They're people
they went out of business because they didn't get...
They're plumbers that are helping to build his hotel. They're contractors that are doing all sorts of things. He just stiffed them. And he knew that if they tried to sue him, they'd lose more money paying for lawyers and doing all that stuff than they would actually get their money back. So he basically waited them out. And so he just went through life conning people, defrauding people, stiffing people that he owed money to. And his only reason he got into business at all was he got $400 million from his dad. That's not a great businessman to me.
Right.
That's not a businessman that you talk to any CEO or any person that's actually succeeded in business the right way, they don't look up to that man. He's a con artist. Couldn't be me, man. I'm not voting for him, and it's clear, like to me, it's clear why nobody should.
When you hear, and a lot of concerns, some of the concerns, not all, but some of the concerns is that now, Madam VP, she isn't black enough.
She's mixed. Her daddy's black, her mom's Indian.
Right.
There's a lot of mixed folks in America. You know.
The police pull her over. She gets pulled over. They ain't say, I think she Indian. She black.
She's black.
She walk into a store. She black.
And by the way, she's about to be, if she wins, the first president from HBCU.
Yeah, I
like from Howard University.
Yes.
From Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Like, are we kidding? Like, those are choices she made.
Right.
Like, she could have gone a different way. Like, I went to a primarily white institution. She could have gone anywhere she wanted.
Right.
She went to Howard. She pledged AKA.
Right.
Like, she black, y'all.
Right.
That's not even a question.
But John, a lot of people have her policies when she was, I guess, the DA, I think, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Some of her policies where she locked up black men.
Well, I think a lot of people have re-looked at that because that was misinformation that was being spread about her. So there was some report that she was locking up thousands of black men on marijuana charges. She locked up very few on marijuana charges at all as a district attorney.
Right.
And a percentage of them were black men, but even in general, the whole list was not a long list at all. That was just completely incorrect. And then they started to blame her as Attorney General for all of the people who were locked up in the state of California, when the Attorney General in the state doesn't even deal with marijuana cases. So they were blaming her for stuff that local DAs were charging all throughout California. That's not her job. Right. Attorney Generals of a state don't deal with marijuana crimes locally. And so she was being blamed for that when it wasn't even her. So this was like, you saw DL, he came out and was like, I was wrong about that.
Right.
I was spreading that and it just wasn't true. And I respect DL for coming out and saying, you know, I spread this and I was incorrect and I learned the truth and I came back and told folks it wasn't true. Right. And so hopefully people are dispelled of those lies. But it's hard though. There's so much media out there and people get their media from everywhere. And so you could be misinformed about things and just not know. And, you know, that's why I think it's smart that she's going on different types of media now, talking to Charlemagne, talking to, you know, different outlets so that she reaches people where they are and where they listen.
And when you look at the problem, a lot of problems that I have is that all of a sudden, the VP has so much power now. Well, what about your policies? When actually, unless the president is incapacitated, she doesn't have any power.
You know, well, whenever something goes wrong, they want to...
It's her fault.
You know that I notice it with J.D. Vance all the time. He's like, under the Kamala Harris administration, I'm like,
I thought it was the Biden administration. I thought she was the vice president.
Yeah, and the thing is, the VP is in the room, okay? So she should get the credit for being in the room and having the experience that gives her of being in the room when all these big decisions are made. She's speaking up, she's involved, she's watching the decision-making apparatus of being president. So that actually makes her more qualified to be president.
Correct.
Yes, but...
she wasn't the president.
She was not the president. So when things are happening, it's because Biden decided they're going to happen.
Correct.
And she can have an input, she can have decision-making influence, but it's the Biden presidency, and they can let VPs do as much as they want to let them do. And some VPs are shut out. They're not involved in the decision-making. At least she's in the room and she has influence. Mm-hmm. But the president is the president, and we only have one president at a time. And she's campaigning to be the president. And you'll notice, first of all, we don't need to shy away from Biden's record. The economy is doing very well.
It is.
Unemployment is very low, including in the black community. The biggest issue that I think most people rightfully are worried about is cost of living. And she's ready to make a change when it comes to that. She's trying to make it more affordable for you to get a house, trying to stop price gouging so your groceries don't go up unnecessarily. She's trying to make your drugs, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, cost less, capping those, negotiating for those. So there are all kinds of ways she can influence the cost of living, whether it's going to school, buying a house, paying for pharmaceuticals, paying for healthcare. All these things cost a lot of money for a lot of people, and it makes it hard for people to live, even if they've got a job, even if they got an income. And so it's good that under Biden, unemployment's very low. It's good that the economy's come back better than any other country after the pandemic. Yeah, so let's remember what happened. If you look at a graph, it's very clear. Obama inherited the financial collapse.
The second greatest recession in the history.
Yes, he inherited, next to the Great Depression, it was the worst. So we come out of financial collapse, and Obama brings the economy back.
Yep.
Trump comes in. Everybody's like, he's the businessman. He's just coasting on Obama's economy. If you look at the graph, it had already been coming up, and he just kind of kept it afloat. Right. And then the pandemic comes, and we have a massive crash. And then Biden, just like Obama had to clean up the financial collapse, Biden had to clean up the pandemic collapse. Right. And he came in and passed major laws that changed this country. So one of them was the Recovery Act, put money in people's pockets, the child tax credit, halved child poverty, put money in everybody's pockets, and then they passed infrastructure so they could build and employ more construction workers. They passed the CHIPS Act so that more high-tech manufacturing jobs are back in America. And if you go around the country, and a place where I grew up, that's a big reason why there are more jobs. That's why the Haitians are coming to Springfield. It's because there are more jobs, there are more manufacturing jobs. So Biden did a great job bringing us back from the pandemic. If you ask any country around the world, The Economist just put out a magazine where the cover title was American Economy is the Envy of the World.
Wow.
And do we have things we still need to work on? Affordability is the main one. Mm-hmm. And that's why Kamala is focused on affordability.
Right.
Home affordability, college affordability, healthcare affordability, some of the biggest costs that we all deal with. That's what she's focused on. What is Trump going to do? He wants to, his big two things.
Concept.
His big two things when it comes to the economy, though, are, one, he wants to make sure that rich people still have their tax cuts. So he's going to help me and you, but not most people.
Right.
And then, two, he's going to put a sales tax on everything we buy because he calls it a tariff. Tariff means everything that's imported, he's going to put a tax on it. And he believes, because he doesn't understand economy, that if he puts it on everything coming from China or India or Mexico or Europe, that they're going to pay. No, they price it in and we pay.
Hey.
We pay.
Right.
So when he says he's going to put a tariff on everything imported, that means he's going to put a sales tax on everything imported. And the thing about a sales tax is regular folks, working class, middle class people spend a higher percentage of their money than rich people do.
Correct.
So when a sales tax hits, it hits working people harder than it hits people with money because most of their money is coming in and then going back out and buying things. And anything that has a foreign component, the price is about to go up. So he's going to increase costs for people, and they say it's going to make inflation go right back up.
Right.
When it's down right now. So the difference is so clear. Like, no, Trump is not the right candidate for any of us. Let's get rid of him. Let's be done with him. Aren't you tired of him being on the news? Are you tired of him? Like, I'm so tired of seeing his face. That I'm tired of seeing that orange makeup. I'm tired of it.
If it's not sports, I don't really watch it that much anymore. So I'm waiting to decide.
I'm tired. Please, God, get him out of our lives.
I'm going to get you out on this. If Madam VP, if she becomes Madam President, what's going to be the impact she has on the Black community?
First of all, we need to make sure we elect a Senate that's going to work with her.
Yes.
So let's make sure everybody's focused not just on the presidency, but the Senate and the Congress. All those people, because she can go in there and say, I'm doing this, 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 and this. But if she can't get them to vote for it, it doesn't become a law until they vote for it.
We saw that with President Obama when he lost the Senate and he couldn't get Merrick Garland, he couldn't get anything.
And so when you vote, think holistically. Think all these people are going to influence this. But if she is the president, you know that she's going to spend every day thinking about what it means to be a working class person, a middle class person in this country, and particularly knowing what it's like to be a person of color growing up in this country. She's thinking about the issues that we have to deal with. Like I said before, the wealth gap, affordability, and she's going to be thinking about those issues every single day and trying to make it easier for you to live the American dream. And I think it's so clear that she has a plan to make people's lives better, more affordable, more successful. And her opponent does not have a plan and appears to be falling apart. Every time I watch him on television, he not going to make it, y'all. Like he looks exhausted. He looks... he's like muttering, like all the things they were saying about Biden, like he's the old guy now.
Right.
Like he's not ready to do this for another 4 years. He doesn't have the plans. He doesn't have the character. He doesn't have the integrity. Just imagine all the people that work for him, especially the people that worked in defense and anything to do with national security. They're like, oh, y'all, don't vote for him.
Right.
He's not safe. He's a dangerous person for this country. Can you imagine any other person running for president and half of their cabinet won't come out and support him? His vice president, who he almost got killed, won't support him.
Wow. John, I want to thank you for coming by. Is there anything that you want to promote? You got the album, the tour.
I did a special album for my kids and for people with kids all around the world. It's called My Favorite Dream, and I just put that out a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And I love it. I'm really proud of it. We put a lot of intention and love into the album. And so, as the news is very stressful, it's a nice thing to calm you down.
Right.
And then we're about to go on a Christmas tour, so people can get tickets for that all around the country. So I'm looking forward to that. I try in my music, I write the glories and songs like that, but I also want to make people, get an escape from all the troubles of the world too. And I feel like this Christmas show and the children's album is a good escape from all the bad news we see.
John Legend.
My brother. I'm glad we could do it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
All my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Want a slice,